Marc Freedman has a purpose. As managing partner and co-founder of Evolved Profits, he and his team have over 40 years of experience in helping businesses free up cash so that it can be reinvested into helping employees, growing the business, and creating positive social impact. He is a serial entrepreneur, CEO, and the best-selling author of Expense to Profit: Eliminate the Costs That Sabotage Your Growth. Marc loves helping companies create more profits while being an agent for change. This is his purpose, and in an effort to help more companies and more people, Marc, along with co-host Yanik Silver, author of Evolved Enterprise, bring you Profits with Purpose, a podcast that aims to do just that. On the show, Marc and Yanik talk to successful corporate decision makers, exploring valuable lessons learned, experiences in growing a company, ways to reduce expenses, and all the ways a company can have a positive social impact. Join us each week and get in on the discussion so we can all have more profits with purpose. And now, here's your host, Marc Freedman.
Welcome to Profits with Purpose. Today, we're happy to have with us Gregory Kovsky. Gregory is the president and CEO of International Business Associates, or as you'll hear me refer to, a quicker version, IBA, throughout our interview. It's the Pacific Northwest's oldest business brokerage. He has successfully negotiated purchase and sale of over 300 privately held companies and family businesses in a few different states: Washington, Oregon, Alaska, California, North Carolina, and Massachusetts, and joining IBA as a mergers and acquisitions intermediary. He's been there since 1994, so he's got a little bit of experience, I think, under his belt. He successfully facilitated transactions involving manufacturing and distribution companies, industrial, marine, automotive businesses, technology, software, service, education, and retail businesses. He's got a 30-year real estate professional experience behind his belt as well. As president and CEO of IBA, he manages an experienced, knowledgeable team of highly skilled business sale intermediaries, individually recognized as industry experts in areas ranging from manufacturing to education and from cannabis to the marine industry. Mr. Kovsky is a common author of industry-relevant articles, seminar speaker, has appeared on radio and television. Mr. Kovsky is a strong advocate for collaboration, the distribution of knowledge and information, and employment of best practices. We'll get into some more of that a little bit later in the business brokerage industry. Gregory, welcome to Profits with Purpose.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast.
Well, you know, we're trying to interview people that have interesting stories, that have different insights into business. You know, we look at it from one angle ourselves, but as a brokerage business, while you look at it probably with similar glasses that we do, you have a lot of different insights as well. So if you can just tell us, if I missed anything in your background there, you can tell us a little bit about your background and how you found a career in the business brokerage business and what career path actually took you before you landed at IBA.
Sure. No, I'm happy to tell my story. So I'm a Northwest boy. I grew up in Portland, Oregon. My father was a veterinarian. And in his 40s, he went through a midlife crisis, decided he didn't want to be a veterinarian. He dreamed of working in the corporate world and took the opportunity to sell his hospital and real estate. And he employed IBA as the brokerage firm to do it. They successfully completed the sale, and he was impressed with them. He went off to work for Hill's Pet Products, Science Diet, division of Colgate-Palmolive at that time, on pet nutrition as a vice president. So he successfully transitioned from entrepreneur to the corporate world, achieved his goals, was very happy. I went off to college, University of Texas, studied business, pursued my first career, Longhorn, and was in Kansas City and was happy with the job, but missed the oceans and mountains and everything the Pacific Northwest offers, and was evaluating quality of life, not just professional life, and decided to come back. Was introduced to the founder of the company, Bill Osofsky, by my father, and it intrigued me. And so I joined the firm in 94, cut my teeth in doing M&A in two industries that don't even exist today. One is ISPs, the old internet service providers, dial-up service, and travel agencies pre-Expedia when we used to have large chains. But emerged as one of the top salesmen, took over management of our Bellevue office in 97. And then in 2000, the founder came to me and said he'd like me to be his successor, reached agreement. So I've even personally been myself in a transaction where I bought a company.
Absolutely amazing. I love the story of your father, though, where most people go from the corporate world to becoming an entrepreneur. He did an absolutely reversal. What kind of a lesson did that actually teach you going off to college about life and different opportunities?
Sure. I think it taught me a couple things. One of my father's sayings, and he has many, is if you don't want to get out of bed in the morning to go to work, it's time to change. And so he had been a veterinarian for a number of years, and he was tired of dealing with the common things, the flea problems and the things that you commonly see as a veterinarian. He actually loved the surgery and the challenge, but that was just a small slice of his day. And so that messaging has always been with me, that if you're good at what you do, money will take care of itself. And you need to be somewhere that you want to be. And for him, it was also recognizing your strengths and weaknesses. My father's, I always call him a fighter pilot. He's really good on specific missions. He is not a great builder of teams and management of people. And he recognized that was not his professional happy space. So where he evolved with Hill's Pet Products well before many people was as a vice president teaching nutrition for animals to veterinarians. And he was part of a national team who in the late 80s, early 90s, et cetera, was really on the cutting edge of educating people, you know, that Safeway brand dog food you're getting in the 80-pound bag may not be the best thing for your pet's nutrition.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, because my first dog that I had stomach issues, and he went on Hills.
Oh, nice.
It's a small world, right? I mean, that kind of a connection, it's kind of crazy. And, oh, by the way, it was probably in 1982 or 3 that he actually did that. So it's kind of funny. Wow, that's pretty cool. So what's the big why of your company, and how does it define you as a business?
Sure. As you and I have talked previously, I think it starts with the golden rule, which is really our corporate overreaching principle, is just to treat people like you'd want to be treated. And we frequently tell buyers and sellers, get up from the table virtually, walk to the other side, and see if you were doing this deal on their side, is it fair and reasonable? So that, combined with giving people the tools to make good decisions with knowledge, sharing our experience, best practices, how to address issues, because the beauty of having been in business as a firm for almost 50 years and doing this almost 28 myself is you have a menu of solutions to situations. And it may be a solution that I haven't used since 2016, but boy, that key fits the lock for this situation. And let's talk about how that solution worked then and why it may be appropriate here.
Very interesting. Always nice to be able to dig into the encyclopedia of past performance to be able to find a solution to help a current client, regardless of how old that solution may be, just because it's a similar situation. Very interesting.
So I often say, business is the ultimate competitive sport. And unfortunately, in our society, the A-grade entrepreneurs don't necessarily get the credit that they deserve, because I have seen people who, I'll give you an example. I sold a company to the founder of Pyramid Brewery, a beer brand out in the Pacific Northwest in Microbrew City, who took it to be a public company, George Hancock. And he was on the board of directors. And we were sitting around talking, and he wanted to buy a company and get the helm of the ship. And he actually bought a marine electrical contracting company that worked with fishing vessels and cargo ships and those sort of things. And you probably realize this, the principles of business are the same. It's good people management, good financial tools, efficient and effective marketing. It really doesn't matter what you're selling. If you do a quality job and take care of your customers, you're going to succeed. And many entrepreneurs realize that and can migrate between industries or product lines.
That's interesting, because a lot of people believe that they need to stay focused in what their expertise is. And that's a demonstration that your expertise could be in managing a business and not necessarily a business in a specific vertical. So that's pretty cool. Pretty interesting.
And I actually think it's sometimes beneficial to come into an industry with different eyes and different solutions to the problem. You take someone who's run a restaurant, you got personnel, you've got manufacturing, you've got customer service. Well, they go into a company that may be providing an entirely different item. Maybe they're manufacturing, you pick the product, printed products, and they still can bring a lot of those principles that, if our deliverance of a printed product isn't attractive, it's kind of like if you get a meal and it's all slopped together on a plate, it's not as appetizing if everything's artistically arranged.
100%. Very interesting. So let's talk about the culture of IBA and what it is that your team and yourself pride yourselves on.
I think we pride on being a service organization, bringing value in terms of knowledge, experience, and skill to the parties that engage us. We are unique as a firm in that 100% of our fees are paid on performance at completion of the sale. So we attempt to only be paid by happy customers who have seen the value we've delivered.
Huh. That aligns with us exceptionally well, because that's how we get paid. We get paid at the end when we've saved clients money. You put a premium in the beginning of our conversation on best practices. At least that was my interpretation. So what are the best practices that you think are the most important to both you as a business and that you try to impact your clients with in the attempt to sell their business and then finding the right buyer that are both aligned together?
Certainly. Not a short answer question, but I'll give you a good overview. But I think it starts with business valuation, is properly pricing the product for the marketplace. And on one side, it's accounting, finance, investment principles. On the other side, in our world, it's pricing art, because each business is unique and has unique attributes. And then combining in understanding market dynamics, buyer demand, those sort of elements. And so just like selling anything, you've got to know your marketplace. If you're 10% above the market, you're not going to sell a lot of widgets. And if you're 10% below, you're giving away your profit for no reason. And we spend a lot of time pricing. Again, our model's paid on performance, but we reject projects if we do not have alignment with our client, either on price, or we don't believe we can be a collaborative team, or we don't like the product, or it's got issues, it's losing its lease in a year and it's got to move. It may be problematic to sell that company until it's relocated. So those, and then one really important best practice in our world is confidentiality. Is we don't want to create issues for the company where their employees, customers, suppliers know it's for sale. So we need to navigate a sale process so it's not a dark cloud that it's selling is being presented to employees. It's, look, we did a search and we found this individual who has relevant experience, and I'm 73 years old and I'm retiring. I think in the business's best interest, which means the employees and the customers' best interest, a transition is going to occur and I'm going to be here for a period of time and have a smooth handoff. That sort of narrative resonates with the market. So you want to make sure it's done correctly. And then it's dotting I's, crossing T's, dealing with issues, often looping in the attorneys on liability issues with what if, there's a product liability issue from when you owned it. How are we going to deal with that to make good for the customers? And in all probability, that nothing happens. But if you're doing 1 million widgets a year, there may be 3% that are defective. It happens in any product. So how do we deal with these eventualities so we're all, in full disclosure, have a roadmap to deal with those what ifs? And that's what you gain with an experienced intermediary who makes sure the I's are dotted, T's are crossed.
Very interesting. Is there a common, say, large expense that you see, other than the hidden ones that that sole owners like to not necessarily put on their books, but the ones that are on their books? Is there something that's common, a very large expense that you see across many businesses, other than salaries? Right.
Well, I think one thing that people don't do enough is shop their expenses. And we're both entrepreneurial and deal in the entrepreneurial community, but pick on an industry, but let's say insurance. And insurance often will incrementally increase. And in that world, you have to migrate to a different company often to get the best pricing in the market. So if you have a fleet of vehicles that are out there and you may love your insurance broker, but you may need to take those policies out to bid because over time you may be paying 10% more or 20% more than you need. And it doesn't matter if it's communications or health insurance or a variety of expenses. The profit-minded entrepreneur needs to go through their P&L and make sure that people are productive. It's also recognizing, and it's a tough situation, but you may have a baby boomer who's more focused on golf and edging toward retirement, who has been with you in a high salary, but they're not at the same level of productivity. We actually sell a number of businesses to that demographic because the corporate world, Fortune 100, will divide a sales territory, bring in two young, hungry people, and let the senior VP go because they can get more productivity and profit out of two people in there. So you do need to, I mean, I believe in loyalty and I have long-term people, but you do need to make sure there's efficiency in your model and you're not paying providers or employees for what they did 5 years ago. You need to pay them for their productivity today.
Very interesting. Is there a period of time, if somebody wants to sell a business, that they should be engaging with someone like IBA? Is there kind of like a fine line? I mean, that one needs to be starting to get things in order before they actually execute to get best pricing?
Good question. We are a gun for hire firm. So we generally sell businesses 3 to 9 months from when they go to market. And we sell 80 to 90% of the projects we engage with in an annual year. And we could talk why some don't sell, but it's odd industries, odd locations primarily. But we always do a complimentary evaluation. And many times we'll work with CPAs and advisors to give them a valuation so they know what the sell now price is and then how the models work. Because in valuation, you have two components. You have profit or EBITDA, and then you have a multiple. Well, if let's say a multiple is a 4 or 5, if you can clean up the financials and show better profitability, let's say it's a 5 multiple, then another 100,000 in profit on a tax return could be another $500,000 at sale price. So sometimes we will meet with people and say, this is the sale price now. It's going to take 3 to 9 months to sell. If you've got some time, we have no problem waiting till 2023 to sell your company. We both win, but you need to do these things because the most important document is the tax return. So we're at a great time to be having this conversation because if you want to sell in an exit strategy, let's say 23, 24, you want to run the cleanest tax return that you can in 22, because that document's going to be looked at by a buyer, their CPA, CFO, a bank, investors. And you would prefer to mitigate add backs that your kid's in college, you're paying him $50,000 a year to cover its tuition. Rather than explaining that, take him off the payroll and show it as profit. It'll be more expensive to you, but it will be more attractive to a bank financing the deal.
Right. Very interesting. Let's focus on IBA for a second. Are there any challenges from your standpoint as a business that you're experiencing currently? You know, we've all seen with COVID and the pandemic strike a lot of different businesses a lot of different ways. Is there anything right now that you guys are doing? Do you have to make any kind of a pivot, or what are you doing to overcome those challenges?
No question, COVID has created turbulence in the economy. That's an understatement. But I also believe entrepreneurs are resilient and creative. So they will navigate the environment. So, for example, food service. We have a good hospitality division within IBA, and we've seen the urban areas struggle and there's a lack of buyers, where at the same time we're seeing the rural areas, a migration of entrepreneurs saying, I want to be in destination locations in the mountains or the beaches, or where people, because they're not internationally traveling, are going, and also where maybe we don't have the same regulatory that you would have. Let's say in Boston, you may have one regulatory level, where up in Maine, you would not have the same, and they're not that far apart.
Right, 100%. Very interesting. You know, it's kind of crazy because our business is a virtual business. It's been a virtual business since we started it over 10 years ago. And, you know, everybody, you know, talks about Zoom fatigue and stuff, but I mean, we've been doing business like that for 10 years. You know, it's not a new normal for us. It's how we've done business because of the way our business is designed. It's interesting. And I think based on things that I'm seeing, you know, with all the excessive real estate that seems to be available commercial wise, and from what we're seeing from clients that we talk to, but also professionals and experts in the field, we're seeing that there for sure is going to be a change to the work environment in the United States of America. I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, but that's certainly what we're seeing.
Most certainly. I mean, I think productivity, engagement, the virtual is a real positive. I think with like real estate, you know, I talked about the migration out of urban areas, but at the same time, it's creating 50-yard line opportunities that haven't existed in a long time for new entrepreneurs who want to go back. I mean, I think there's going to be a huge opportunity in 22 and 23 moving forward in service businesses, because people have been, you know, you talk about inflation in the economy. Part of that is because people have been homebound and buying products. Well, as the pandemic diminishes, I think you're going to have people pursuing services and experiences that they haven't, so that the people who are in those venues, and you can go from the girls who love the Disney princesses, who the last 2 years haven't been to Disneyland or Disney World, who have, you know, that rite of passage, to the local place that has, you know, a bounce house type environment or rents bounce houses and those sort of things. They think those are going to come back, and they're going to come back strong. So if you think ahead as an entrepreneur, is where are people going to spend their money? You want to, just like investing in the stock market, you want to be an early adopter. You want to see a trend early. You don't, by the time the whole world knows about it and USA Today writes about it, it's too late.
That's the Wayne Gretzky thought process. Go where the puck's going to be, not where the puck is.
Exactly. And and there's always opportunities.
So I noticed on your website that you have a program that you're a strong supporter of the immigrant entrepreneur community. You know, we're one of the things, profits with a purpose. That's what we talk about. We talk about how do we take what we do where we're successful and give back and create a bigger impact. Can you talk about that program a little bit and how it's helping both those immigrants as well as differentiate you as a business?
Sure. No, we embrace the immigrant community. I mean, my whole family, you know, is less than 3 generations in the United States. I mean, I've seen the American dream achieved, where people come here, and the reality, whether you come from Latin America, Asia, Europe, Africa, The easiest way to enter our economy is as an entrepreneur. Whether you're cleaning houses or opening up a restaurant or doing a trade you did overseas, we've in the marine electrical industry have seen a lot of Eastern Europeans out of Poland and Romania and some of those countries who have come here and with those skill sets built wonderful companies using their trades. We try to support them and introduce them to what's available, like SBA loans and working with SCORE, because in their countries, they don't realize I can put 10 to 20% down and the US government would finance the rest with an SBA-backed loan of me buying a company, which is much more effective than a startup. So, and we have multiple languages on our staff, be it Spanish, Indian dialects, Russian, German. So we actually have the ability to communicate sophisticated concepts in a methodology where they don't need to translate. I mean, try understanding a concept like tax allocation in your second language.
No, that's a differentiator for sure. And it's always, I as well, I don't know how many generations, maybe 4 generations, but I as well. I mean, I think we all come from immigrant families almost. And so that's great. It's really something that I think is pretty special that does make a difference.
Well, and I think many of them, to stay on that, many immigrants to the country recognize the unique opportunities here where 3rd, 3, 5, 7 generation families no longer realize what's available. For example, use Germany as an example, a really respected economy in the world. Well, basically at 14 there, you pick your career path. And it's really hard to migrate into something else. If you decide you want to work for BMW or Volkswagen, they have great apprenticeship programs, but they will invest in you and develop you. But if at 25 or 45, like my father is a veterinarian, you decide you no longer want to work for Volkswagen, good luck in Germany moving into banking or something else.
Very interesting. You may already have answered this question with your golden rule, but is that the best advice that you've ever been given, or is there something else that maybe trumps that?
I would say 2 rules. The do unto others as you would want to do unto yourself. I think it's an international, across all cultures concept, and it needs to be applied. And then I would say focus on your skills and your passion, not on remuneration in your path in life. That if you are good at what you do and you enjoy what you're doing, in my life experience, money will take care of itself. And I think the people, and we deal with this in business sales, we say, don't focus just on the profitability of the company. I mean, we've sold companies that rent porta potties and, temporary use toilets. Well, if you don't see yourself enjoying being in that world on an everyday basis and dealing with, it's Sunday and this toilet is full at this park and we need you to pump it and replace it, and finding someone to go out and do that, that's probably not the career for you unless, you really want to do it. And it doesn't matter if they're earning $500,000 or $1 million doing that. You probably can speak to this. Ultimately, an owner needs to know how to do every position and ability to fill that position, because you never know who gets hit by a bus or has a spouse or child get ill and needs to pull out. And ultimately, it comes to the owner of the firm to problem solve.
It's interesting you say that because many, many a moon ago, 1980, I think it was, maybe 80, somewhere around there. My roommate's father had a heart attack and he ran some dry cleaning businesses. And I hadn't decided what I wanted to do yet with my life. And they said, well, we need you. Can you manage the business? I'm like, I don't know anything about dry cleaning. Yeah. I went in and one day I was pressing pants. The next day I may have been pressing silks. Next day I was cleaning clothes. Then I was up front and I was, it's like you said, if you don't enjoy what you're going to be in and be able to operate all those different positions, you're not going to be happy and you're not going to be successful, correct?
Correct. I mean, you sell your soul for money, and I just do not advocate that. I think you need to be where you're fulfilled and have a good quality of life. I'm a big proponent of, life balance, and you just need to create a world. And the reality is we spend a third or more of our time working, and to not do something that you enjoy, to me, is criminal. I mean, it's just, you shouldn't every day dread going off to work.
Yeah, no, I agree. So is there anything that we haven't mentioned that you want to touch on before we finish?
Well, I would say, and both of us value this, is information and knowledge is a foundation for success. You make a prudent decision from that foundation. And so I would mention on our website, which is IBAinc.com, IBAinc.com, we have a very robust blog where we've had almost 100 guest authors. And so if you're entrepreneurial and want information on a variety of subjects, it's a free resource for the entrepreneurial community, and you may find informations or contacts that could be beneficial in the future.
Wonderful. I was actually going to ask that next. So you beat me to the punch, but I'm guessing they can get in contact with you or anybody on your team, obviously, on the website as well, which is IBAinc.com. And Greg, it's been really wonderful. This has been truly very insightful. I thank you for your time and thank you for joining us on Profits with Purpose.
Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.